Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Tonight we're going to talk about how citizen journalism is fair play, regardless of what the New York Times might have to say about it. So thanks for tuning in tonight. Actually, a fair amount of stuff to discuss, somewhat to my surprise. But I'm glad to see all of you here. And I guess the first thing to talk about is the topic at hand, which frankly is something that I feel like I let everybody down in a way, because this is something that is so obvious, and it's something that we've actually done with specific targets in mind for specific reasons, but it's not something that we ever applied in a more general sense and in a broader sense. And yet it's so entirely obvious that it's a little bit bothersome. So the New York Times was complaining today, whining very heavily about the fact that Trump allies target journalists over coverage deemed hostile to White House. A loose network of conservative operatives allied with the White House is pursuing what they say will be an aggressive operation to discredit news organizations deemed hostile to President Trump by publicizing damaging information about journalists. 4 people familiar with the operation described how it works, asserting that it has compiled dossiers of potentially embarrassing social media posts and other public statements by hundreds of people who work at some of the country's most prominent news organizations. The group has already released information about journalists at CNN, The Washington Post, and The New York Times in response to reporting or commentary that the White House's allies consider unfair to Mr. Trump. Operatives have closely examined more than a decade's worth of public posts and statements by journalists. Only a fraction of what the network claims to have uncovered has been made public, with more to be exposed. So all that they're doing is precisely what I've been recommending since 2015, which is utilize every tactic that is utilized by the enemy. That's what Gamergate did. That's what the VFM do. And now it's really encouraging to see that the CivNat right, even the Cuck right, is beginning to utilize some of these tactics. And so and the thing is, it can be used well beyond the journalists. And here's why this is fundamentally an advantage for us. And, all they're doing is going and making sure that they catalog and screen cap. Remember that's one of the big core rules of Gamergate. And in fact, I finally figured out why they're attacking Gamergate. Like, why on earth did the New York Times do 5 opinion editorials castigating Gamergate a couple days ago? Well, now we know, because they knew this story was coming. They knew this stuff was happening to them. And so what they realized is that Gamergate tactics are now being utilized by the mainstream right. And this is massive. This is huge, because there's literally nothing they can do about it. They can whine about it all they want. They can cry about it all they want. But these are the tactics they have normalized. And like I've said, the only way that you're ever going to get your enemy to stop using a certain tactic is to agree that they don't want that tactic used against them. And so, but it's very important to remember the basic rules of Gamergate. Any link that you find, any tweet that you find, any post that you find is going to be vanished. So You archive everything and you screenshot everything. When you write about something, you never ever link to the actual post. You always link to the archived post. And you always maintain a separate screenshot. This is vital. And here's the great thing, is that you can do this. It's not just about the journalists. This is a fantastic tactic to use against big tech. Do you have any idea of how many, all of these things are fair game? And having Arthur Sulzberger, who is the top guy at the New York Times, writing this story before most of the information has even been divulged, demonstrates how terrified they are of this. And the reason that we have an advantage here is twofold. Number one, people on the right are much more accustomed to having to watch what they say. We all know that anything and everything we say is going to be used against us. You know, when NPR published that article about me, and it included, it was co-written or co-produced, whatever, by this Rolling Stone reporter who conducted the last interview with me that I've ever done with the media. That was several years ago, 2 years ago, I think, maybe 2.5. And she complained about the fact that she had spent 3 hours talking to me and she got nothing. She got absolutely nothing. Why? Because I knew that anything that I said would be used against me. The only thing that she got was she got me to say something about women voting because she asked a direct question about it. And I went ahead and answered it because my position is on the blog, you know. But that was the only thing she got that she could even try to use in 3 hours. The left is not used to this. They're not used to anybody paying attention to what they say, much less what they said 5 years ago, much less what they said 10 years ago. You know, they always do this. Back in the middle of Gamergate, David Pacman, who's a minor journalistic hanger-on, he contacted me and said he wanted to do an interview about Gamergate. I said, okay. He tried to call me out about the headline of a opinion column that I had written for WorldNet Daily, something like it might have been as long as 12 years before. It was a long, long time before. And he was trying to play a gotcha game with me about that. And the hilarious thing is that he was attacking me for something I didn't write. Writers, the columnists, don't write the headlines. The editors do. We normally don't write our column headlines. The editors, read the column and they write whatever. So he was trying to dig up something and use it against me, a decade or whatever or more later, that I hadn't even written. This is a standard tactic that they use. But here's the other advantage that we have, is that with every school of fish is going to be caught out by a shift in the narrative. So I guarantee you can find all kinds of tweets hating on that will be interpreted as transphobic, homophobic, sexist, anti-Semitic, whatever, because the narrative is shifted. Think about how it used to be all very chic to be in support of Palestine. Well, now they're going to find themselves accused of anti-Semitism because the narrative has shifted so much on the Israeli-Palestinian situation. And so all you need to do is dig. All you need to do is find a byline or find somebody's job title on LinkedIn and dig. If they are a vocal lefty, then you will almost certainly find something. And then you point it out. And they've been using this tactic to disemploy and deplatform people on the right for at least 5 years, and really more like 10. And so it's very important that the right adopt this tactic seriously and start applying it methodically, not just to the journalists, to every single outspoken member of the left. Now, the one advantage they have is that a lot of them are not duly employed. A lot of the biggest freaks don't have jobs at all. But, and they're also going to be protected to a certain amount. You can bet that the New York Times is going to drag its feet and try not to fire these people, despite the fact that they've been found guilty of the very thing that the New York Times claims is totally unacceptable and renders somebody completely beyond the pale and unemployable and so forth. They will try, but it's not going to succeed. And so we now have silver for the werewolves. We now have stakes for the vampires. Use them. A lot of you say, well, gee, Vox, what can I do? Now you know. You got 10 minutes? Dig up a few hater quotes and screenshot them and start building a dossier on that individual. I mean, eventually these things are going to get put in catalogs and compendiums, and people are going to be able to look them up, research them. Wikipedia is going to get rid of them, but you know what? Infogalactic isn't. So, there's wow, that's that. If that doesn't cause CNN to get rid of Don Lemon, I don't know what will. Owen Benjamin Live points out that he has evidence that Don Lemon has used the H word. Now that's bad. That's very bad. So anyhow, we don't say the H word here, Jedi Master. So, and welcome DJ Link Spins. Anyhow, read the article. Let me, contrary to my advice, I'm going to actually send you the link, because this, I'm sure, is archived somewhere. But this isn't. Here is the article. I recommend that you read it. You will find it inspirational. Watch your mouth, Aztec Bear. Watch your mouth. So anyhow, I find this development to be tremendously encouraging. I'm a little bit embarrassed that we don't already have a massive compendium of a lot of this stuff ourselves, but we've been busy. We've been busy. So this was kind of funny. Owen, I think one of Owen's guys created it, but Owen just sent it to me. Apparently, there's someone's doing, I think, some sort of Magic the Gathering style or Game of Thrones style card thing. But anyhow, I definitely have advanced gamma detection. So I don't know who's doing these cards, but that's actually a rather clever design. And I like the way that so many of you are throwing in little plugs for unauthorized.tv, whether it's on videos, whether it's on memes, and so forth. So it's very encouraging to see. The There's a little bit of a mirror effect there. There's a little bit too much of my chair going on. So anyhow, I thought you might find that amusing too. Vox of House Reprehensible. So, aren't we all? A couple announcements that I think some of you are going to be interested in, but I want to point out something else. Speaking of dredging up tweets and statements from the past, I don't know if you saw the way that Saint Iphon, as I like to refer to Stefan Molyneux, Saint Iphon called out Ben Shapiro in what can only be described as an absolutely legendary manner. Stefan's been on fire lately. So Ben Shapiro put on Twitter, "If we don't share common values, we shouldn't be surprised that politics becomes warfare by other means." We don't share common values, Ben. We're Christians. You're a Jew. There is no Judeo-Christianity. There are no Judeo-Christian values. There is nothing in common. Yes, you have the Old Testament. So do we. And so do the Muslims. I don't hear you talking about Judeo-Islam very often. So first of all, there is no we, Kimosabe. But to the point, Stefan hammered back with, "You said that you were totally fine with the third world pouring into America, Benny. Now you say you're not surprised at all that lack of shared values leads to massive social conflict, which means you knew it would happen, and you were fine with it." And so some people started trying to claim, "Oh, well, he's never said that." And then, of course, about 50 people responded with quotes about how he's totally fine with the browning of America. He has no problem at all with the browning of America. He has no problem at all with the replacement of Americans with non-Americans, which actually makes sense because Ben Shapiro is not an American. He may be a U.S. citizen. He's a paper American. He's a fake American. You know, his entire family comes from a place that is not America. And so, anyhow, they try to claim, well, he's just talking about ideology. He's saying, people should be of the right ideology, except for the fact that there was this little thing that he wrote back in 2003. The ideology of the Palestinian population is indistinguishable from that of the terrorist leadership. Really? There's millions of Palestinians, but all their ideology is all the same because they're Palestinian. You know, this is why these liars are going to lose in the end, because they're always going to be caught out. The more information that is out there, the less room there is for these liars to dance. They're always going to get caught out eventually, sooner or later. Yeah, you never hear Shapiro mention Israeli-Palestinian values either. Oh, Christopher Cook said, it sounds pretty racist. Shapiro and Dennis Prager are the most racist people in the United States. I'm not exaggerating. Shapiro literally brags that he is 100% pure. I realize that take anything he says is true. That's precisely right. He wrote me an email back when he was having a crisis of conscience where he talked about how he was feeling guilty because all he did was parrot the talking points of the day, the Republican talking points of the day. And you know that because all you got to do is read his WorldNet Daily columns. I never bothered reading them because there was no need to. His columns were redundant. Bon Necron says, I believe I heard Andrew Clavin admit that Christianity was fundamentally different than Judaism. It is. It is fundamentally different. It's fundamentally different from Hinduism and from Islam and from Zoroastrianism and from Shintoism and from Buddhism. It is fundamentally different from all of those things. And so to claim that they are the same, to claim that they have common values, is total nonsense. They don't. You will look in vain in the Christian Bible to find any justification for having sex with little boys and little girls. There is none. That is most absolutely not okay under any circumstances. There is no justification in any way, shape, or form. That is not true of certain non-Christian religions. And so, Shapiro called Jesus Christ a common criminal on Rogan. That is very much a lack of common values. So let's see here. Breathing Bear says, and yet Clavin still uses the expression Judeo-Christian pretty regularly. I know. That is why I don't trust Andrew Clavin. That's why I don't consider him to be a truthful person. Anyone using the term Judeo-Christian is either ignorant or a deceiver. Maybe he's ignorant. Maybe he's just caught up in the web of liars because he associates with people that are committed full-time professional deceivers. But, so maybe he's deceived. But all you need to do is talk to a rabbi, look up the Google Ngrams. I'm not making this stuff up. They are making a lot of stuff up. The melting pot, the nation of immigrants. This is not who we are. All that stuff. Total BS, total propaganda. Brandon O'Neill has a good point. They hear that phrase over and over again, then start to believe it. Max has a good question. How do you refer to the three religions of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity? I refer to them as the Abrahamic religions. That is an appropriate statement. It's one that it's a classic description, and it's perfectly legitimate. But they don't use that because it doesn't serve their purposes, which is to try to claim that Judaism is part of America and part of Western civilization. It's not. It predates both. Well, yes, it predates both, and it is something separate. It is, in fact, Eastern civilization, Middle Eastern civilization, to the extent that you can describe it as a civilization at all. I would say more, it is a Middle Eastern society. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. But it's totally false to claim that it has anything to do with America, anything to do with Western civilization. Think about it. Where were the bulk of the Jews who were resident in Europe during the medieval time period? In Poland. Not exactly a major influence on Christendom, was it? It wasn't even part of Catholic Europe. So, anyhow, Judeo-Druid values are plausible. That would make about that much sense. Horatio says, Shapiro is about to be on Fox. Fox shows who they really are by having this POS on. Hope they're not setting him up to be Tucker's replacement. I hope they are. I hope they show their hand that way. Let them do it. The more that Shapiro gets exposed to the American people, the more the truth is eventually going to come out. So, Vox Day Respecter says, normies get suckered by the Judeo-Christian term because Christians believe the Old Testament. Sure, because they're lied to about what it means. They're lied to. They say, oh, it's just because we both value the Old Testament. Well, let me see. Christians have the New Testament, which supersedes it. Jews have the Talmud, which also supersedes it. So how is that the same thing? You've got two things which both stem from an original source, as does Islam. That doesn't make them the same. It's crazy. What is the best rhetorical argument against the nation of immigrants argument? Point out that it's not true. Point out that the people who settled and colonized the United States of America were not immigrating and did not become part of the Indian nations. This is not the United Iroquois Confederation. This is not the Greater Cherokee Empire. They came and they conquered. That's why my people live on a little reservation, because they were defeated by some of my other ancestors. So they weren't immigrants. There is a huge difference between people who come and try to live off a established society that's already there, and people who come and establish something new. The United States of America and the 13 colonies, they were all something that was fundamentally not part of the Indian societies. This is not difficult. Must be awkward at Christmas dinner. Yeah. All right. One I missed last night. Marie Golay said, the art of war says if your opponent is temperamental to irritate them. I don't remember that specific bit, but okay. Lionshare Logo said, 5 traits every warrior should possess when engaging the enemy. Ways to hone them. Thank you. Okay, the first trait you need to possess is morale. The most single important element in any extended conflict is the morale of your side. When you have high morale, it doesn't matter how many times you're defeated. It doesn't matter how big the advantage of the enemy is. If you see these red books right up there, that's the History of the Peninsular War by Charles Oman. Great history books. Some of the best ever published. It's possibly the most complete and detailed description of a war prior to World War II in terms of its documentation. And what's fascinating about it is Napoleon and the French armies were vastly superior to the Spanish rebels, the one British army, and the Portuguese army. Vastly superior. And the only reason that they didn't win was a combination of the brilliance of Wellington, but more important was the very, very high morale and total unwillingness to surrender on the part of the Spanish and Portuguese people. The Portuguese in particular were astonishingly committed. So high morale's first. Secondly, I think is probably some combination of recon and resource. You need information about the enemy. You need to know what's going on. You can't be blind. So recon and research would be number 2. Courage, obviously. Cowards just are not going to fight. Number 4 is discipline. It's very, very important to follow your leaders. The more quickly you obey them, the more completely you follow through, the more effective you're going to be, and the more effective your organization is going to be. And then the 5th one, I would say, is probably patience. No matter what the conflict is, war, a lawsuit, there's so much time that just where nothing's happening. So you need to be able to be patient. So that's my answer. Dan Boone says, thoughts on the Baptist 1689 Confession of Faith? None whatsoever. I'm not familiar with it. Mark Skog points out that only John Podesta is allowed to search the internet per Fredo Cuomo. Yeah, they want, again, they do not want people using their own tactics against them. Mustard Bear asks, what's the possibility that everything trans being used everywhere is a mass wizard control anchor word to elicit actual trance hypnosis on the general public? I would say 0. Paul Campbell says, your analogy regarding the score of a football game and the impossible timetable for evolution was tremendous. Thanks for all you do. You're welcome. I was trying to find a way. I'm trying to develop a simulation of Owen and Donald Trump's ability to speak in terms that more people understand. It's not something I'm good at, but I'm working on it. And apparently it worked that time, so that's good. Double No Pickle Bear said, we're invested in seeing unauthorized.tv succeed. I know that. I see that, and I appreciate that. And it's been tremendous. And, the next level of attacks will be coming. We don't know exactly what they'll be, but we have a couple pretty good ideas. And, we'll be ready for them, and you guys should be too. Remember, high morale always wins. Like Owen says, nobody's having more fun than us. And I can assure you that nobody is thinking more about what we have to do to continue moving forward than us. Karen Took the Kids said, Shapiro never mentions Israeli-Palestinian values. I think I mentioned that already. That was good. Ben Cohen says, is Russia and Byzantium part of the West? They're kind of like the red, well, at least Russia is like the red-headed stepchildren. Byzantium is part of the West, historically speaking. Russia, not quite so much. Also, are there any books that go through all the civilizations that existed and currently exist? Yeah, there's several. I mean, I can't name one off the top of my head, but, I'm sure there's more than a few. So, okay, we covered all those. So now, no, you can't be VFM. The VFM or the VFM. You don't become VFM. So, Abraham Kim says, we are always ready for conflict. We breathe conflict. Our blades are sharpened and our guns are loaded. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Wild Axe Bear, thoughts on when the economic collapse will occur? I think in the 2033 timeframe. A Taliban detainee told a U.S. interrogator, you have the watch, but we have the time. Yeah, the Taliban are going to win in Afghanistan. No question. None whatsoever. I've been saying that since about 2001. Maybe 2002. Why? Because the U.S. is not going to colonize it. And the U.S. is not going to completely eradicate all life from Afghanistan. So it's going to retreat sooner or later, eventually. All right, so this is a little bit sooner than I expected, but I have to make the announcement because it's already out there. First of all, this is something that we were told, assured by comics professionals, that would never happen. So I'm very, very pleased to be able to say that the Alt Hero Omnibus, which consists of the first 6 issues, is now available on Castalia Direct, and it's also available on Amazon. So this is what it looks like in person. This actually is a slightly one of our prep issues. We made a couple fixes to this one, but Alt Hero Volume 1, it contains Crackdown, Rebel Cell, Reprisal, The War in Paris, London Calling, and The Dark Hunt. We actually have it on sale at, it's $19.99 on Amazon, and I believe it is $16.99 on the Castalia Direct store. Let me give you the yeah, it looks like $16.99. Here's the link for the paperback. And of course, it is all going out to the backers. So if you're a backer, who has a paperback coming, you don't need to buy it. The link I just sent you is the paperback. We also have the hardcover. Let me give you the link to that. And the hardcover, I believe, is $24.99. So, no, we knocked $1 off the price because they don't do free shipping yet. And so, hardcover, there it is. So, $16.99 for the paperback omnibus, $23.99 for the hardcover. Now, if you recall, those of you who are backers, we promised that we would do a special hardcover cover for you. And so we have done that. And so this is the cover of the backers hardcover. This is not for sale anywhere. This is a limited edition. So nobody is going to have these except for the backers and a few people that are close associates of Arkhaven. So yeah, don't worry about the non-secure website stuff. That's not our website. It's Ingram's. So yeah, it's only available, I think, in the U.S., possibly in Canada right now. They're adding Europe towards the end of this year, I believe. So anyhow, both the paperback and the hardcover are going to be going out to the backers this week. I don't know exactly, we're not shipping them, but they'll be shipping all over the world to all the backers. There's a couple of you who backed and we don't have your name. And so I'm going to be emailing all of you who are in that situation so that we can try to get your name and so forth. Anyhow, and if you're interested in backing the next project, we're going to have new projects relatively soon. The backer, Drake says, okay, I'm tempted to get those because regular cover. The backers are going to get, the backer paperback is the same as the regular paperback. It's only the hardcover that is a collector's edition. And that's going to be true of each of the hardcovers that we do. Maybe, if it turns out to be a popular thing, we can potentially look at doing collector's editions for the paperbacks as well. But are your comics age rated? I think that it's probably, I'd recommend for 14, 15. I mean, these are not like little kitty things. I don't know about the best way to pay for unauthorized without a credit card. Sorry. There is not a lesbian hero. There is a very, very gay hero. You can see him actually on the paperback cover. He's the one on the upper left. His name is Rainbow. Why is the blue guy sporting an EU flag? Because that's Captain Europa. You have to read these to understand. I don't do what the left does. I don't create stories where everything's one-dimensional. If you happen to be someone who believes in the globalist ideals, then you might actually see some of these characters. Abraham Kim says, just curious why a gay hero but not a lesbian one? Well, number one, because I don't do what Marvel and DC do. And number two, the Rainbow is based on somebody that I personally know. And so, and he's just a hilarious figure. And again, these are the EU superheroes. And so they represent those sorts of ideals. Let's see. Yeah. So anyhow, no, it's not Milo. People keep saying that. It might look a little bit like Milo. It might even strike you a little bit like Milo, but it's not Milo. Trust me. It's some of the things that he says are literally things that an acquaintance of mine used to say back in my nightclub days. Norm Benton says, have any former doubters reached out to you for advice to save money after you have released these successes? No, absolutely nobody. It doesn't matter whether it's the mainstream critics or the Comicsgate critics. They're not going to. I mean, we've already successfully funded our first movie. Now whether we'll be successful with the movie or not, Rebels Run, we can't possibly know yet. But we are farther along than we ever imagined we would be at this point in time. We've just come out with this first omnibus. I believe that we'll also have the first Chuck Dixon's Avalon omnibus, which is the second set. It's basically Alt Hero Volume 2. We will have that out most likely before the end of the year. We've finished the art now for both 5 and 6. And so, we may have half of the 24 comics that we're committed to doing done already, and the omnibus is out. And so I'm very, very pleased that we've been able to do this, and I'm very, very pleased. I mean, the quality of these books, and I think you'll see, is excellent. I mean, not just good, not just professional, not just, oh, it is up there with Marvel or DC. I mean, the quality is excellent. And that's what we're committed to doing. We're going to keep trying to improve and keep trying to get better. So, somebody said we should get a superhero with Vox's Darkstream mask. Yeah, you obviously haven't haven't read too much of the story, but this is something that everybody, this is something that people have known about from the beginning. Let me see here. So, you may recognize that, but that's actually created by by Cliff Cosmic, the same the same guy who did the paperback cover. So anyhow, Ed Chair says, sell us your stuff, Fox. Ed, we already sold it. We already sold $250,000 worth of it. I'm just letting people know that it's going to them now. We are delivering to them what we've done. So. Silent Draco said, I almost fell out of my chair reading Alt Hero number 6. Yeah, there's more than a few inside jokes there. But the important thing is they work. It works with the story. If it was just lame inside jokes that nobody gets, it wouldn't work. But when it works as a storyline and it has a deeper meaning to it, that's when it's the best. I mean, I can't. There's so many things I can't talk about yet, but Cortisol Bear asks, may I ask what do you think of Malcolm Gladwell? I don't mind at all, but that is, I think Gladwell is a charlatan. I think that he is usually wrong. That whole 10,000 hours of practice thing is nonsense. He's basically, he's authorized, he's pushed, he's basically monetized the TED Talk. So, congratulations. Yeah, the guy who created the comic book for Owen, I mean, that we're actually going to print that. In fact, we're probably going to make that part of Owen's crowdfunding tour. A golfer tried the 10,000 hour rule and documented it. Surprise, it didn't work. Yeah, not even a little bit surprised. So, no, we're not. But here's the thing: we don't do things like take shots at Shapiro and Prager and stuff. That's what the left does, and that's how they ruin their stories. Our rule is story first. The story has to come first. It has to be a great, compelling story. The characters have to be compelling. I mean, people love the characters that we've created there. Heck, I love some of the characters. I mean, this is my... People say, oh, who's your favorite character? You've created all these various characters. Who's your favorite character? And I can tell you right now and I bet some of you who read it can probably guess who it is. But this is absolutely my favorite character. You know, her name's Dynamique, and she's a member of the Global Justice Initiative, and she's hilarious. You know, that's she's totally the sort to sit there and do her own thing and pay no attention to what everybody else is doing. So anyhow, but we have so many characters. I mean, people are going to be surprised when Alt Hero number 7 comes out, because they're not going to see it coming. So, anyhow, do I speak French? I speak a little bit of French very badly. So, but yeah, I mean, we're doing the stuff that people used to like reading about in comics. The plots are good. They don't lecture to you. The girls are hot. The heroes are masculine. Silent Draco says he gets it. He says the heroes and opponents are both great sets. All have multiple layers and contradictions like real people. Add the inside jokes and current news lines, and it's a smash hit. Yeah, a lot of people were kind of freaking out a bit because the war in Paris, to a certain extent, presaged the Gilets jaunes. And in fact, the Gilets jaunes actually took the war in Paris and translated it, and were using some of the images from it in their memes, which they were kind enough to ask me if I minded, and I said, no, not at all. You're standing up for your nation. I'm all for it. So, anyhow, I'm French. I can tell. That's why you have that outrageous accent. So, but it's interesting. I enjoy writing comics. I'm not as good at it as Chuck Dixon. There's a reason why we call him the legend Chuck Dixon. But it's it's a different form than, say, a Throne of Bones. Somebody said, if I like Throne of Bones, will I like the Wheel of Time? Probably not. I certainly hope not. Vox, it's awesome that you don't kowtow to these artificially induced standards. I have no interest in them. We're doing our own thing. We will succeed or fail doing our own thing. Yeah, Chuck is insanely prolific. The two people that impress me most when it comes to writing, just their pure speed, without sacrificing quality, are Chuck Dixon and John Wright. They're amazing. Is the Throne of Bones the best jumping off point with your novels then? It depends if you like... I was told that I had succeeded at least in part by a very serious Korea fan. So I was very pleased by that. Quantum Mortis is just military science fiction on steroids. So, yeah, we don't do that. Knock it off. So, Arc Logo says, what a gift to have a legend like Chuck Dixon on the Unauthorized Squad. Exactly. Oh, I didn't mean to. Sorry, William, I need to undo that. I was supposed to put you in a timeout. Unhide. Sorry about that. Yeah, Box Day Respector. I've been reading Superluminary. Crazy. It is. It's insane. It's totally insane. So, anyhow, well, that's it for tonight. But again, if the opposition doesn't want you doing it, if they're whining and crying about it, then you know you're being effective. So, oh, quick question. Is it best just to order the Alt-Q books individually since the omnibus doesn't ship to Japan? No, you can order it from Amazon. You don't need to order it direct from us. It's on Amazon. So you can order it from probably amazon.jp. All right. Well, have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. You know where you can find the omnibuses now, and backers, you'll be getting them soon. So have a good evening. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.